I'm Chandra Lynn, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
We are recording live in your wonderful backyard. This is palatial.
Welcome.
This is
Thank
so
you.
nice. How was the book launch gone?
Oh my God, it's been gangbusters. It's kind of wearing me out, Pete. I have to say, in a good way, in a good
Yeah.
way. Like I've been really, really surprised at how many opportunities have been coming up because of the book, and
Yeah.
just people are really coming out of the woodwork.
When you write a book and sell it, you have to be sales lady of the year, marketing lady of the year, PR person of the year, author of the all in your organization. It's all on you.
It is. The indie author journey is real, let's just say. I,
Yeah.
I had no idea. I thought the hard part was writing the book. It took like 5 years. And
Yeah.
now that it's out, it feels like there's no end to things that I need to do for the book.
Yeah. We know each other off camera and we talk quite a lot. But you at one point had this book, and I'm going to say you were pushing towards 600, 700 pages, right, of just insight. And it was so dense. How in the heck did you edit down the book into a more consumable, marketable size?
That's a good question. I think it was just lots of edits of just, wanting really what it is knowing that the first writing, the first draft is kind of a brain dump. And then the second round is more of like, okay, let's write for impact. I
Mm,
really wanted to make sure that it was distilled down to be the most powerful it could be. And I know people have short attention spans these days. We're getting more and more used to consuming bite-sized content.
yeah.
And so the book is still, I think, 340 pages, but it's not super dense. I mean, like there's exercises, there's white space, you know.
Yeah. And there, I mean, I've been through the book. I've been slowly, uh, because it's more of a practice, the book, I think. And so instead of just like, I've read every word in the book, I have completed it. Now I move, like I'm trying to actually go on the journey with the book. And that is a refreshing thing for me because you hear me mocking myself as I must read this book cover to cover in 5 days, although, and it turns out not all books work like that. And yours for sure does not. And it's been a breath of fresh air to be able to pick it up, think about it, and even just meditate for an extended period of time on a particular section, and then remind as we all try to get better at being ourselves and everything. I often say at my best, and let's not forget, I'm often not at my best.
Mm.
I try to do this right, but having these practices allows me to be aware of what I'm doing. Like right now, I'm aware of how to run this show. Right, I'm very aware of that, but also I'm not stressed out about this because we're in this wonderful space.
Mm.
And a lot of that comes from your book and just our experiences in general as adults. And so thank you for all of the great lessons and the ability to read your book at a pace that is not quite so insane and mind breaking for me.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that you're even putting your attention on it. I mean, I really do feel like we're in this attention economy, and to get any time,
Yeah.
in somebody's brain is just like an honor. But I think that the way that I wrote the book is in three phases.
Hmm.
But if you really just kind of want to see what's going on, I can literally open it up at any place and go and kind of deep dive into it. Like I
Yeah.
just opened it up, and the first thing I saw was strategies for stress reduction, prioritize radical self-care, say no and protect your energy, move your body, connect and express. Like who can't consume that at any given time? And that's literally on page 230. Like I just randomly went to.
Yeah.
It's a little different. It is a journey because you can work through the phases. But if you just need a little bit of inspiration or enlightenment or ideas, you can kind of pick up and read in different spots and just be surprised by what you get.
Anybody who looks on the bottom of the page, you will see the link right down there, and you can get the book on Amazon. As always, it's in the comments and remarks section. It's also in the show description. So if you guys are interested in that, you got here's what I always say: like, buy two, buddy, read it, buy it for a friend, and say, let's go through this. Let's go on this journey together. And that's a great way to support all authors, especially independent authors who are trying to uh, do a bigger thing in the world. I mean, what is your what is the goal of you and your life and the glow thing? What is all that?
Well, I mean, I think that ultimately it's about giving back, and I actually put fruit on the cover because when we're in our healthiest, we have this hard-won wisdom. We've gone through adversity, and ultimately we have fruits of our labor, our experience, something valuable to give back to the world. So I think that's really what I'm doing. I mean, I'm a professional marketing consultant. I became a certified coach. Now I'm doing this with the book because I want to have something in my life where I'm just contributing beyond myself, and I'm just, have a give back, and I'm using my experience to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I want to get away from the book for a few minutes and talk about a project that we're working on together. We're interviewing a lot of ladies that have a lot of experience. We talked about these experiences and their fruits and everything, and we just did a session. And you know how like this kind of production is, it's stressful. Can you pull up page number 238 and go to the stress part of the book? But we talked to Morgan Fairchild, and these things are coming out in shorts, and then we're going to make a bigger thing later on. But Stephanie Powers, Morgan Fairchild, and Gabrielle Stone are our first three ladies that we had on the show. Talk about that project and talk a little bit about the experience of having these women on and what they had to offer.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to Harlan Bowles. He is a celebrity publicist who connected us with his amazing clients. His roster is unbelievable. His stories are unbelievable. And I just so enjoyed meeting him and having him connect us with these women. But, so when looking at his roster, we identify that these women have had such a rich history. They're all living a legacy. And I thought that ties so well into the themes that I'm trying to promote in the book. We need to think about what legacy we're leaving behind. What do we want to be known for? What if we're living a very purpose-led life are we doing? And all these ladies have contributed something amazing and are pioneering something amazing still, even in their 70s and 80s, with Stephanie Powers and the Wildlife Foundation that she's running. And Morgan Fairchild is starting a podcast with her sister that is going to help people, save the world. So these ladies have a lot of their own hard-won wisdom, and they're leaving it behind. And so I thought, what a better way to get their stories out there than partner up with you and, see what we can pull out of them in terms of their life lessons and, what they're looking to do with the future. And it was great to hear that none of them really even know, they don't even acknowledge the word retirement. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
they're just like still on a mission and having as much passion as ever for life. And I love it.
Yeah. And also Gabrielle Stone, who is younger in life, but has experienced a lot and has a lot of success in writing books and going on adventures, and is also just hard-won wisdom for her. Even though she's younger, there's still a lot of sage advice.
Yeah, and her mom, Dee Williams, Dee Wallace.
Dee Wallace.
Sorry, Dee Wallace, who was the mom on E.T., the movie. And I'm sure she has just been raised with a really interesting life experience, and then coming into her own and being able to, have her own journey through healing through heartbreak is really her story. And now she's married and has a toddler and is just like having the mom experience and sharing the wisdom from that. Actually, I just saw a TikTok of hers where she was talking about how her toddler's going up to all the houses with Halloween decorations, and she's having to apologize to the people for spending like a half an hour in their yard, messing with all their stuff. But everybody's been super happy and gracious to because I think we get excited to see through the eyes of young people.
Yeah. And also we have the grace to allow them, like, these neighbors will be fine if my kid's there. Let her explore this world. Because, for the most part, nobody's going to get upset with that, because it's a pure, natural, curious thing that we want to, sometimes we get a little precious with what someone else might think. And if we allow them, I always say, like, let's let folks be folks. And if you want to come out and tell us we'll leave, right? But that's not going to happen.
No, and the way that she tells the story is just so funny and so endearing. I can see why she's got 1.5 million followers on TikTok. She's just a great storyteller, and she makes it so real and so approachable.
The TikTok thing's interesting. We talked a lot about this, and what is the goal and what you want to do? Like, you have your legacy you're trying to do, you have the book and all these things, but you can become trapped in, like, I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. That's a legitimate thing I'm doing right now, and I'm going to invest money in that. And then we're on another service called Podmatch, which I love. And you can spend 20 hours a week on that. And TikTok, oh my God. And then Instagram, oh my God. Oh, by the way, my LinkedIn sucks. And so You can get wrapped up doing everything except for the thing that you're doing as you try to pursue something that, if I caught 2 million followers on TikTok, I don't know that I want them. I have a
Mm.
good, rich life now that I'm trying to expand and enrich. Obviously, more money is always great, but um, it, it's a struggle trying to figure out how to develop an audience, give them something that's interesting, but not be trapped by the thing that provides that audience potentially.
Yeah, I haven't been so fortunate to have so many viewers that they're dictating my time. Maybe one day. But I think what it is always having to connect with what you want and why you want it. Because if people say, "Oh yeah, I want tons of followers," well, why? Is this some kind of ego thing, or is it because you have something really of value to offer? For me, it's because I'm trying to still find my audience, that resonates and that is going to benefit from my work. So I need to do that promotion and build the audience. But it's definitely not for ego reasons. I could really care less about having a lot
Yeah,
of people on the platform for that reason. But these days, to find your, your community, you have
yeah.
to put yourself out there and be a beacon of hope and beacon of inspiration in order to attract them in.
You've worked professionally with a lot of brands. You talked about your marketing consulting practice. So I was at Top Rank Fighting the other day in Las Vegas. It's a company that puts on world famous fights, and they have all this in their warehouses full of like these massive moments in sports history. These fights that all us fellas love and everything. But they have YouTube plaques. One's gold because they've got however many subscribers, and one silver. And I point to the guy who makes the fights, and I'm like, do you know what those are and how important they are to so many people? He's like, I have no idea. It's something from YouTube, I think. You know, and so they're not worried about it. And look, they are a media company. They have all this media, and so they're built for something like YouTube. It's great, but it's interesting how like a brand can have totally different needs for where their marketing should be. Like for you, if you had X number of ladies and you all went to some place, even you're in your backyard, whatever it's going to be, that can be the greatest thing in the world for you to be able to have that community. It doesn't have to be 8 million people. And great if it is, but that's a whole, then you get to do less of what you want to do and you do more being boss lady. And so that's a weird balance between what a brand needs and what's healthy for the brand.
I agree. I think for me, having depth of connection, having authenticity, being able to work with somebody well enough to where they actually are experiencing some positive transformation,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's meaningful.
Yeah.
When I read a review of my book from someone I don't know and that has gone through an experience, that is like the ultimate compliment. They didn't do it because they have my back,
Right.
because they're a friend. They did it because they are, that they went through something that they felt was significant enough to share with other people
Right.
in a review. They had nothing around me, to nothing I asked them to do. They did it on their own accord. And that is such a beautiful thing. That makes me think, okay, there's really something to this. This is really potentially transformational. It has helped people, and I'm getting the feedback from people I don't even know. And that is just the most amazing thing. So yes, is it seductive to do that for more and more and more and more people and have it be like millions of people? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Because if I know the potential of it, but for me personally, knowing even that I've touched one life
Yeah.
has meaning and value.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. We interview a lot of people over here on the side of the thing, and when you find someone who's desperate to get a certain level of success, you can find a person that has that level of success, and they still have aspirations, they still have problems. We both know a lot about the music industry, and you can have a band that's very successful that you would dream to be as big as them, but when you see them in the pantheon of great bands, they're insignificant and they really can't ever get any better. And so they've got to figure out how to be happy playing the same songs at the same state fair every year, but that's how they live. Or traveling and playing these small clubs and bars because that gets them over $250,000 a year in revenue. But it is a hard life, and you don't get to just turn it off if you want to ever turn it back on again. It's more of that thing where like, what is it that you want to do? And I guess my question is expand on that, but also how do you sort out? And I don't want to name any artists, but there's artists out there that struggle. Like this is a job. This is not, I like to create, but how many of us go, oh God, the new, here comes the new, we're going to play one from our album. And you're like, oh no, not the new album, and so then they're desperate to expand. They're probably better songwriters than ever, but yeah, you can win and have these kind of handcuffs that are wonderful handcuffs, but still, yeah.
Yeah, well, people always want the hits from the past because maybe they're nostalgic or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, they have to deliver, to a certain degree what the fans want, and then introduce new things. And how I would expand on that is really just to say that we all have a driving need for progress. It's called growth, right?
Yeah.
When we grow, we're feeling progress, and progress is really the thing that makes us feel joyful.
Yeah.
And that joy is what we're looking for to feel fulfilled. So I think it starts with that ability to grow. And yeah, you have to grow the audience's minds with you. And and they you want them to, like, for example, I might get a lot of followers around Root to Rise, and then what if next year I'm doing a totally different program?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, wait, we're still talking about okay. So you have to grow them with you and get them to to understand the benefits, because as you've grown, hopefully the value of your offering has grown as well. And so bringing your audience along with you, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's in business, whether it's as an author or coach or whatever, as long as you're growing and progressing. And I think where I've seen these legacy bands get stuck is because they are stuck in the past in terms of what they haven't brought the audience, along with them as well. Maybe they had a gap in their creation process, or, how many of the bands have like final tour and then next thing you know, reunion tour, but they're still having to play that old music. So I think that it's this idea that as we grow, we feel a feeling of progress, and that's how we invite joy into our life. And when we're not doing that, that's when those stuck feelings take place, and we feel like that can bring on depression. It can bring on anxiety about trying something new. And I'll add one more thing, which is understanding your human needs, which is a big part of the book, is breaking down the 6 human needs and understanding how they apply to your life can really help you get unstuck. Because, for example, some of those people may not have grown because they want to stay safe. There's some need inside to feel secure. It's like our reptilian brain wants us to stay safe. It doesn't really care whether we're fulfilled. It doesn't really care if we're, growing or traveling and seeing the world or trying new things. It wants to know that we're safe where we are. And so it can keep us, held back a lot. And then on the flip side, people that are, like don't throw any caution to the wind and they're out there doing everything may have a hard time making commitments or grounding or feeling a sense of security. So we're always balancing these needs that kind of have, they're somewhat competing sometimes.
Yeah. Boy, that's good. Someone in my life that I know, I was talking about travel with that person, and they said, I've done that. All of it. All the travel. I don't ever need to leave. I love where I live, and I don't know that I'll ever leave again, because they had completed the task of traveling. And we often in life reach the conclusion of something. And sometimes you get to choose, sometimes it just goes away, sometimes it fades. But like I'll probably never play golf again. I was in the middle of a hole, on the middle of a course, and I said, you know what? I think I'm done. And then I haven't even, and I don't hate golf. I completed that task completely. And there was a very calm in that decision. It was no like longing or anything. And it was one of those perfect decisions that you come across in life. And I had never known of these things until I had one. And I'm like, no, it's perfect clarity. Like I love golf as a game. I can watch it and everything, but I have zero desire or need to ever even grab a golf club. I'm not even fake putted around like at a Bass Pros or something. I completed that task.
It's interesting to think that there's these, of course, there's these bucket list check marks that, we make in life. And, once we've checked them, maybe we just lose interest because we know there's so many new things.
Yeah.
I think people may stop certain things that no longer bring them joy, or like you said, that you feel complete,
Yeah.
and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Some people are forced to stop things that they love, like through, sports injuries or
Sure.
whatever else, and so they might always have a sense of sadness or loss that they had to stop or something. So everybody's just kind of at a different place in their journey, and
Yeah.
it's just more about like honoring where we are in the journey and saying, okay, well, if we did have adversity along the way, how can we transmute that pain into purpose?
Yeah.
How can we use it to help other people who may be struggling, and in terms of how we were able to, persevere through it.
Yeah. And then the interpersonal communication that comes with these kinds of things, if you've completed a task or whatever, like I enjoy yoga, but I struggle to do it. My arms don't go straight. And so it makes things like downward dog really impossible because my arms blow out, my triceps get, and I can't do it. Right. And so I've got to find alternate positions, and then my body's beat up in a way. But if I try to communicate this with somebody, especially if they're passionate about yoga, they're like, oh, it's okay. Just stick with it. You'll figure out how to do that position. And I'm like, no, I don't stick with it because it's not something that I'm built to do. I do enjoy it, but and so we struggle to communicate like that. So every time like the VA is like, you need yoga. And I'm like, all right, let's try again. I try, and it's the same trap where I'm end up not doing yoga because all of my compromised positions are not, it isn't yoga anymore. I mean, it is, but it's hard to communicate that. And then I get told all the time how I need to do it this way. And I'm like, hey, we're not. So that communication process of like, my friends are like, of course you play golf. And I'm like, I really don't. I don't fish. I don't golf. These are things that I've tried and are not my thing. So that communication thing where people need to be folks, wherever they're folks. And even if you don't think that they're in the right spot, they're in their spot. And that communication thing's it's an interesting dynamic when you try to go through that and explain things or listen to something being explained to you. Does that make sense?
Well, everybody's looking through their lens, right? And
Right.
so, say like a yoga practitioner or a teacher who's really enthusiastic because it's working for them, needs to have empathy, obviously, for the other person who may be having a different experience. One thing I will say about yoga, and it does frustrate me to hear what your experience has been with
Yeah.
it, because what an advanced understanding of an advanced practitioner of yoga is somebody who actually knows their body enough to not push in ways that are unhealthy for them. It's
Yeah.
like you need to know how to do the modifications and learn what works for your body and what doesn't, and be mindful of that. That's advanced yoga. Knowing your own limits and working with them,
Yeah.
and not going, oh, just keep going and muscle through it or whatever. Like, no, I have to honor where my body is right now, and not compete with a former version of yourself or with other people in the class or what the teacher can do, because it's completely irrelevant. I think when people are competing with themselves from, as I'm sure you understand, that the former version that you used to be able to do, you're actually not in an advanced, yoga practitioner mindset. That's where the yoga mat becomes a microcosm of life, and you have to see how you are with yourself on that mat.
Sure.
Is likely how you are with yourself out in the world. So what other areas may you be competitive with others or with your former version of yourself? And then that's something to work with. And that's where the personal growth and development comes from, because this is just an example. I'm not saying it's you personally, but like a lot of people struggle with is, identifying this kind of thing about themselves. And then that's where the personal growth can come from, and the shadow work and the root to rise. And you really dig into all that. So I think it's really kind of cool when that stuff comes up, because it shows you an area that you can grow.
Yeah. I did yoga one time with a lady. It was my first session with her. And, I kind of explained my deal and everything. And she was great. And then she had me lay down and do like the relaxing thing afterwards. And that was fine. But she had me close my eyes. She was padding around the studio behind me. And I had just come back from one. I'm like, I'm going to try to act like you're not walking around trying to kill me. I know she's not, but my brain is like, what is that person doing? Where are they at? And then I open my eyes and she's above me. So like she's looking straight down at my face, and she's pulling an imaginary string out of my third eye or something, I guess. And I'm like, okay, listen, whatever that is, it's fine. It doesn't bother me, but I'm never going to come back now. And there was a lacking piece of communication. And I would say it's on her, because it's her studio. She's got to try to communicate with me. If I needed this, you have to explain to me why you're pulling a string out of my face. And hard when I see her at the grocery store every now and then, I'm like, that's that lady that tried to pull an imaginary string out of my face. That's what I think about with this person. And I don't want to be that kind of a jerk, but she didn't know how to connect with me. And I was in a position of, who is this person and why am I doing this kind of thing? Does that mean, I don't know. I don't want to be unfair.
I think that's kind of where with with instructors, they need to get into a little bit more of a permission-based practice. It's like, because when you're in somebody's space like that, whether it's energetic or physical, you need permission from the other person to have openness, or invite them to it. Because I think that a lot of times people they won't invite you to it. It'll feel like an obligation or something you have to get through. And really, it should be something that had she explained it, maybe you would have been really open and excited, and it could have maybe done some magic. But because you didn't know what was going on, you might have walled off or got defensive, or just like wondered how soon can you get out of there?
Yeah.
And who's that going to serve?
Well, and especially with her walking around behind me, and I didn't know that this would bother me as much, but I was like, I had to completely leave the space I was in and go to a space of, she's not trying to kill you. She's not sneaking around, but
wow. Well, you have spy training and all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you got triggered, and she would never know that, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. And maybe she wanted to give you an experience that you could just experience or feel it. And in her mind, she could have been like, I'm going to bestow this gift of my energetic work or whatever.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, it's like, this isn't with my permission. I don't know what you're doing. You're losing me, and I'm making me uncomfortable.
Yeah. She had the wrong kind of, you had me at close your eyes. I'm like,
I didn't. You didn't have me. Well, I'm sorry you went through that, because there are so many amazing teachers out there who can do a lot of great things.
Absolutely. And I've had a lot of great yoga lessons, but it is an area where I struggle, and I don't. I'm going to start trying it again. I started taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and so I want to balance that rougher, more physical practice with a softer, more restorative practice. And I don't know if these things go together, but I'm going to see how they go. And there's other older dudes that do this stuff, and so I'm kind of copying their lead. And maybe I'm a little more open to, like, when they tell you to get ready for yoga, I have to grab that big bonbon thing. I've got to grab 5 different bricks. I've got to grab a lot of stuff. I got to grab straps. Sure. And so I come with a load of things, and I don't want to interrupt anybody else's practice, but I'm moving stuff around, and I just, I am a lot in the studio as well.
I'm a lot. Then you're starting to be self-aware in a way that you don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm not just worried about farting. I'm worried about like stepping on oh, sorry, Jesus, I lost my, it gets crazy.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I think it's finding the right teacher is really everything. I've had some really good teachers, and I have a few that, I'm like, okay, I could do this at home and be happier, so.
When we're thinking about big decisions, like where we're going next, how to pivot, there's always challenges in our lives in the world. It doesn't matter what era it is. We all have that. What's your advice on how you, like, if you have a bunch of options and they're all pretty good and you just don't know which way to go, how do you sort through that? Like when you're rooted?
I mean, I always go back to the needs, what needs are they serving? And, down to 3 fundamental life questions. One is, what do you want? And people get stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I want, so what do you want? And if you do think you might know what you want generally, then ask yourself, why do you want that? Because we can really get stuck on the why. If we don't have a strong enough why, what is going to get us through the adversity when it starts to get hard, And then the last one is, if you know what you want and why you want it, what are you truly willing to do about it?
Yeah.
Because our willingness can also be an area where we get stuck, because we might be pretty clear about something we want, but then the things that we need to do to get it may not be, something that we're willing to do. Like, for example, I was just talking to somebody earlier that she was hired as a marketing consultant, basically, for this person that wanted to go to the next level in their business. They spent the money on her. They received her strategy. But when she was like, it came time to what they were willing to implement, is where she could see why they were stuck in the first place. So there was a certain amount they were willing to do, like by bringing in a consultant or whatever. But when the rubber met the road and it was like, you guys have to do
Yeah.
XYZ, there was apprehension, and she had to get into, well, why aren't you willing to do that if you really want this? And so that can that can relate to anything we want in life. What are we really willing to do? Because we have to be honest with ourselves. Sometimes we're not willing to do things because one of the needs is being compromised, like what I mentioned earlier. The need for growth might be compromised so that the need to feel safe is met.
Right.
So somebody may want growth. They know why they want growth, but then they're like, but if I grow, I'm not safe. It's not always a conscious thing. They're stuck. And so then you go, okay, well, let's address security. So when you're talking about making a pivot and trying to decide where to go and sometimes you have to think, well, what can I get going with the new road to validate it and maybe have a little bit of legs under it before I make the jump? And I have helped coach people around that. Someone who was like really good in sales in the broadcasting industry wanted to go more into a creative field of writing and becoming a comedian and all these things that she wasn't really giving herself permission to do. But she was like, I'm just terrified to go into work the next day because I'm not meeting my goals. I'm afraid people are going to see that I'm not the eagle that I once was. I mean, she even had her identity down to a spirit animal.
Yeah.
And so we talked about, well, for you to feel safe to make this pivot into the creative field, what are a few things that you could do to create security? And once she was able to lock in a few clients for her creative writing and a few gigs for her comedy and stuff like that, then she goes, okay, I have enough going on to where I feel safe, and was able to quit that job and be in a much better place. And I also said, you're facing letting go of an identity. This identity of the eagle is just one facet of your multifacetedness. We're multifaceted diamonds, in my opinion. And she was reflecting this eagle side in the sun, but she was feeling like it was growing inauthentic because she just wasn't into it anymore. And I'm like, that's because the need for growth is calling to you. You've done the eagle thing. You've already mastered that. You can't master it anymore because you don't want it anymore. So let's turn the diamond to another facet that you want to grow into, and give yourself permission to do that by building security under it and allowing yourself to grow.
The other day, D'Angelo passed away, and John and I, John, we both were aficionados, especially John. And I love how much John loves D'Angelo. And so we took our special someones to the Hollywood Bowl and saw Dave Chappelle and friends. D'Angelo was one of the friends. And when they announced, because we didn't know who the friends were going to be, and then that was amazing. John and I both we screamed at it because it was so exciting. And then it was great. The band had Questlove. It was just an amazing experience. And so I believe in this whole, I call it night capping. Like, hey, let's go out and get a nightcap. Not like Love Boat nightcap, but like regular, let's cap the night off with this extra thing. Or let's do these moments so that when you're trying to compare, remember that time when we had that great moment? Like, which one was that one? Like, there's so many of them, right? Because people are dropping dead. D'Angelo is dead. I had a friend die about 2 weeks ago and just was alive and then was not.
Well, Ace Frehley was announced today.
Yeah, so. Right. And so how do you manage, not necessarily the FOMO part, but the living part, the pivoting part, but also, hey, I got a mortgage part, and the responsibilities. Am I just, is my ego just tired or needs a break? Do I need to go on vacation? Because this is how I make my money, and people are counting, especially if you run a business and there's people counting on you to be an eagle, and you're like, but I don't want to be an eagle anymore. How do you manage that balance of what we need to do to live? Because no one's going to care what you did for a living in almost every case, but they are going to care about how you lived with them. Right. And then again, you got to pay a mortgage, you got to pay the whatever bill and all those things.
We live in the real world, That's why I was talking about how I asked the eagle to create some validation for her new path so that she could have more security and certainty going into the path. Had her validation techniques, whatever it was that she decided to do, not worked out, she may have hesitated and created and had to pivot into even another plan. And in her case, she was able to get a deal with helping somebody write their memoir,
Yeah.
and that was a big enough nugget to allow her to bridge, from one to the other. So she had to have a practical approach to do it because, she's a single mom and she's got, stuff going on. So we all have to do what we have to do. So we may have this idea for our pivot, but you have to look at the building blocks to get there in a practical way. You want to just be moving towards it. That's where that progress is going to come in, where you feel that joy. You don't even necessarily have to be at the end game to feel the joy. You just have to feel like you're really on the road, that you're being true to yourself. When you're being true to yourself, you're being authentic and you're on the road.
Yeah.
That comes with a certain amount of joy in itself. And then once you get there, guess what? You've just climbed a mountain to get to a new vista, and you're going to want something new, or you're going to want to level up from there. There's always that next level. Like you were saying with people earlier that are successful, it's like, well, what they're going to have, and they're not going to feel like they have it all figured out.
Right.
They're going to want something new at that point, because that's that need that we have for growth and progress. So there's going to be something else. There's going to be something else that follows the success, but it'll be in a different area where you could get back into the beginner's mind and grow from there.
What's been the best part so far of writing this book?
The best part is reading those reviews and going, this person doesn't know me and is digging it and it's helping their life, and like, whoa, like the power that has, it feels so good. But I think it's actually a vehicle to be able to go deep and connect with people. It's just like a reason to talk about things on a deeper level. And I've always been that kind of person. Like I'm not really, into little chit chat or like little surface level conversation, but it's not always appropriate to go deep real fast with people you don't know that well. But with the book content, it can kind of fast track those communications, and I'm able to see who's kind of conscious, and who's just not with me on this journey, and it's but the people that are digging it and able to connect with me, it's like I feel like I'm just making so many more new friends, and I'm growing my community so much faster of the right people, the people that are on my vibe, on my wavelength, I guess.
Are you finding more use, or what would you say? I mean, you're a marketer, so like, who's your avatar? Is it like another Chandra, or is it something else?
I thought that it was going to be just like a lot more, women in midlife transitions, and there definitely are some, and a lot. I've also found that there's been, like, because of working in the music industry and it being fairly male dominated from my marketing side, there's been people on senior staff at companies that I work with, men who have wanted somebody to talk to about using it for career pivots or relationship problems, going through divorces. I've noticed that it's for people in transition. It's for people who are either they need to make some major life change, whether it be with their health, with any of the 5 roots, their health, their relationships, their friends, their family, or their careers. And so in those areas, there's something going on with them enough to spark a meaningful conversation about how can I use this to help myself through this transition that feels like such a big one to me at this stage in life. Because, as we get older, the stakes just seem to get higher.
Oh my God, we don't take on smaller problems.
We're not, the small stuff. We don't sweat the small stuff. We're like dealing with big life shit. I mean, divorces, big life shit. Changing jobs or career tracks, like jumping into a whole new area, big life stuff. Kids are empty nesting. There's just big stuff. Our hormones are changing. Our what we value is changing, and our friend groups look different. It's just such a big time of change, and that's really who the book is for. It's not as much like a specific demographic. It's more of, I guess, a phase of life, or like a psychographic in a sense, like where people are at psychologically and what they're wanting to invite into their life.
You were talking about the voices that come out of the void, I would call it, and they're like, "Hey, I read your book. It changed something." It's amazing. Same thing with the show. Look, you go on any platform, it's like, "You suck. You have a podcast. How dumb." And I'm like, "You really knew how incredible."
I haven't had that yet, and I just really don't. I don't know how I'm going to handle it if I do. So I might have to call you.
All right. So here's my roots of advice. First off, if you make something like a book, a movie, or whatever, a certain amount of people have to hate it, even if they never consume it. And so like when someone's on X or whatever, and they're like, "You're a podcaster," I'm like, if you only knew the people I've met and the experiences, like I got to know you because of a podcast, and we get along so famously. So there's all these great things that go in there, and so it is fun. But I guess the thing I am talking about here is for anybody watching, if you reach out from the void and say, "Hey, this is great. This was wonderful. It means a lot to the person who's creating
Oh
it."
my gosh. It's everything. It's fuel to keep going,
Yeah.
and it's validation, yes, and everything, but it makes the work worth working
Yeah.
at. It's like, this is work. I have to, like, I wanted to make a few changes to the book for the next version, and I'm fighting with Amazon KDP over the formatting and
Yeah.
getting my infographics to line up and all the stuff that's not glamorous,
Yeah.
And so knowing that somebody out there is appreciating it and it's actually helping them gets me through those difficult challenges where I'm just like, I don't want to have to do this stuff, this part of it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just thinking about how I also, in writing the book, to be able to be vulnerable enough to release it, because I talk about my own life and stuff too in the book, my own journey. To be able to be vulnerable, I've had to recognize that this is not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That there's going to be a certain number of people that connect to me, my voice, my messaging, and then there's going to be some people that it either goes over their head or underneath, wherever it goes, it doesn't land on. And so I did have to get straight with that, before launching the book.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of the book and the launch, there's the link right down below. My Handsome Visage. You can get that book on Amazon or wherever you get books. And be sure to go to the website. Plug your website real quick too.
glowliving.com. And I'm also inviting people to go to my glowliving.etsy.com, because that is where I can physically take your book, sign it, put in a special bookmark that I made, write you a letter, put it in these really cool decorative poly bags, and ship it out to you directly with love from me to you. So glowliving.etsy.com.
Keep going.
All right.
So
and then, right now I have a discount running where if you do Thrive 25, you can get 25% off the book. So that should help, offset some shipping and whatnot. So Thrive, THRIVE 25 on glowliving.etsy.com. And if you go to glowliving.com, the actual overarching website, you can link to it from there, and you can take my free quiz. The quiz will give you your top driving need that is responsible for a lot of your key life decisions. It's what's driving your key life decisions, which is really, why you are dealing with what you're dealing with in your life. It just kind of the driving force. I call it the hidden forces. The hidden forces, you could find out the number one hidden force that's, responsible for your current life conditions by going to glowliving.com and taking the free quiz. And that'll give you a few emails on understanding the human needs in a lot more detail.
And I'm trying to type in the link for Etsy,
glowliving.etsy.com. And
okay,
I have the
right
book
here.
and a journal and a candle there. But the book is really the place where I can personalize it. I also have it on my TikTok shop. But the best place, it also is a place to really help authors, because we do actually, we can get your email address so we know who you are and stay connected to you. And we can also make a little bit more than what Amazon pays out. Amazon, as wonderful it is to have a platform to self-publish, it doesn't do you a lot of favors when it comes to marketing. So I always say, support the creators on Etsy.com.
Perfect. What hasn't been great about launching a book? What's been hard?
I think what's been hard is, what we talked about earlier, which is being a one-person operation with a ton to do.
Yeah.
The amount of social media content that the algorithms, want to, it's a thirsty bitch. Let's just say that. I am like keeping, up on the content, growing the following. but that everything, it's now become this monetized industry where literally
Yeah.
everything you have to pay for. You need to pay for
Yeah.
to be entered into awards that you may not win. You have to pay to be given reviews of your book that may or may not be good. Luckily, I've gotten some good ones, but it's, you put it out there. One review was $450
Wow.
just to have a chance at them saying something good that you could use in your marketing, just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
And there's all these people who have services, whether it be helping you with Amazon KDP, or getting your book into retail, or helping you with get on podcasts, on doing PR. There's a service for everything, from editing and design to social, to ads, to running your ads on BookBubs, or promos on all these book reader sites. And it's all great that there's opportunity, but taking advantage of it all and funding it all has, I guess, been the most challenging part.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to do, and as you try to think, like, well, I got to get up early so I can do my ice plunge, and then I've got to write on my gratitude journal, then I got to spend time just rooting myself, and then I've got to do this, and then and all of a sudden you're like, it's noon. I haven't even done any work yet. Oh, I got to get through all these emails pitching me things, right? And so, yeah, there is just this tumult, and sometimes it's like, I'm just going to North Star this and clear all of that out and stop worrying about not that any one thing is not important, but you really can get distracted by all these things you're supposed to do. And it turns out, like, really what you need is just, you need to just keep A to B, A to B, A to B all the time. And then, take some diversions, eat the ice cream sundae, whatever it is. But yeah, it's easy to get distracted.
Yeah, I think, right now, because I just launched it, a couple of months ago, I'm considering myself in book launch mode, which means I'm just testing and trying everything out to see what lands. I think I'm going to be able to hone a book marketing strategy. And at that point, I'd love to help indie authors who are going through the same thing, So being a marketing professional, I am looking for what actually is the most effective and what's got the best ROI and all that kind of stuff. But right now I'm just trying a ton of stuff,
And how does your rooting practice go day to day? What are you doing to practice what you preach?
Well, I think exercise and eating right, it's just so fundamental, and it just seems like a no-brainer. I mean, like, to talk about it is nothing revolutionary, but because it's so fundamental, it's for some reason hard. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to eat really, really well, but that's my goal right now. Going through perimenopause, I had to be mindful of my health, because like, I feel perfectly fit, but then I'll get a blood test and find out I have elevated cholesterol, elevated cortisol, because of the hormones. It's not because of my diet, but because of that, I need to now do more I have to do 45 minutes of cardio 6 times a week or whatever. And it's just like, really? So I think what I do is first check in with how I'm doing physiologically, and kind of make sure that I have a good roadmap for the day, which is tough because of the demands. And if I don't get to the gym early because I have client meetings or whatever, then sometimes it doesn't happen. But I have to listen to my body, I think, is what I would say. And then at some point, at least a few times a week, I try to journal or connect in with myself internally. So it's not physical. It's more about my feeling body, my, what's happening in my monkey mind, and you're trying to make sense of it all, clearing space that way too. And I always recommend, if people are feeling stressed, to get out in nature, being outside. I know that with the changing of the season, sometimes it might be like the perfect time of year for you, or it could be starting to get uncomfortable, but just to get outside and look at nature. My book is based on nature-based wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom in nature, with universal truths and the way that the order of things that we can learn from. So connecting in with that can be super grounding.
I love it. Yeah. All of these things, right? And just find the things that work for you, and continue to chase. One thing I've realized too in life is that you have to chase things. You don't have to catch them. You're like, oh, that was a fun pursuit, I'm going to go on to the next one. And sometimes that pursuit is the thing that you get out of it. So I am going to go try journaling for a while, or whatever it is. And, and you can suck at it. It's fine. And you can come back to it. Journaling's not going anywhere.
And journaling isn't something you can really judge as to whether you're good or bad at it. I think, you can use it just to completely brain dump, and just as a way to kind of, organize your thoughts. You can use it by, like, I have questions that I journal prompts in the book.
Yeah.
And that way, because I believe great questions bring great answers. If you
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself the right questions,
Yeah.
you might be like amazed at what you can discover when you start to journal on a question. So there's different ways to journal. You can free flow, or you can have a like a directed, thing where you're
Mm-hmm.
asking a question or answering a question. But there's other practices as well with journaling and following exercises and stuff. Some people are just want to do a gratitude list or
Right.
something like that. But there's lots of ways to journal.
Yeah.
I do like it because I feel like I think a lot, and so I need to sometimes dump that out to be able to get to what's underneath.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Uh, Great questions equal great answers. What question should I have asked you?
Me?
Yeah, this time. What?
What do I want? Why do I want it? And what am I willing to do about it?
The big
And,
three.
the willingness thing is always such a great topic, because
Yeah.
we could identify areas where we get stuck by going, I don't know.
Gosh,
So, like
yeah.
with the book, what am I willing to do? Right now, I feel like I'm willing to do anything, but I don't know if that's really true.
Yeah.
There are limits to how much I would,
Yeah.
endure, I guess.
Yeah. I know I get asked to do a lot of things, and I'm a pretty heavy case of FOMO all the time. So I do a lot of things. Like I want to go to this party that you've got going on, but I'm like, I'm not doing it. Right. Because I've also got to take care of my relationship. And so I'm like, yeah, some things I have to say no to. But yeah, it got me thinking about other stuff there. The willingness thing, though, when I talk to young folks, especially, I'll ask them what they're worried about. And they'll be worried about something that's in the zeitgeist, the climate or something like that. And I'm like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Oh, no, I'm going to make video games. And I'm like, well, then you don't have to worry about the environment anymore. Like, yes, you can be a good citizen in the environment, but you can't let it worry you so much that it disables you. You have other goals, other things, and there's folks that are going to do that, and they're passionate about it. And it's okay to say, that's not for me. Doesn't mean you can totally ignore it, but it means that you don't have to be so passionate about worrying about it that you are bound up by your worry and your dread over something that you're going to do nothing about. And that's the big, I think in there's balance, of course, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it made me think of that advice that Stephanie Powers gave about it's actually in little things that we're actually able to do something.
Yeah.
Like when she was saying, just being mindful of who you're buying from, or
Mm-hmm.
what product you're using. Are you,
Right.
buying a bunch of plastic bottles, or do you have a canister that you refill?
Right.
Are you, these little choices can actually add up to leave a lighter footprint on the planet,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
do good. And that's your own way. And then you're going to have other people who are, you know, way on the other end of the spectrum, and like you said, that's their focus and that's their thing, and
Right.
they're going to give it their all.
Yeah.
And so, just to understand, that gets back to that question about what you're passionate about and why you're
Yeah.
passionate about that thing.
Right.
And what are you willing to do about it?
What are you
Again,
willing to do about it? And if it's nothing, it's okay to say that's not for me, and whatever. And I'm using the environment because we all care about it, but it's also good enough to say I do these things. That is something that I don't do. People always try to put food on my plate, work on my plate. Hey, you could do. If you ever want to find out about how to sell more books, you can ask your friends. They're like, "Oh, well, here's what you got to do," and you're like, "Huh."
totally.
Full plate.
Because you've launched so many books. Yeah.
One of the things I'll say to and I love my friends. I got a lot of friends and they're great. And I'm like, hey, I appreciate all the advice. Here's the best way to help me. Go to my PayPal link, put $5 a month in my pot, and I know what to do with that money. I'll put it to work on some of these things you're talking about. And then they're like, oh, and I'm like, or don't do that and just don't worry about it. I know I appreciate you trying to help, but the help that I need, it's not like, oh, I have an idea that everybody else has thought of. Help. It's bigger things. And I found that to be a very good way to make my friends stop being so open with their desire to tell me how to do my job, and more like, oh, where can I help you? And I'm like, well, look, you don't want to put $5. I don't care. Buy me lunch, or don't, or just hang out with me, and let's not talk about my show or whatever it is. And that gives them several avenues where they can decide how to flex and help. And that has allowed. It's taken a lot of people trying to put things on my plate. It kind of push them to another line where they get to back to being my friends, because they want me to succeed, but they don't know how to help. And so
it kind of made me think about CTAs, which are
Hmm.
call to actions.
Yeah.
We all have to think about what is it we're actually asking people to do,
Yes.
right? Because right now I could ask, the listeners to buy my book, to go take the quiz, to go follow me on all
Hmm.
100 of my channels, whatever, wherever they are. I could have them, write their Congress. So I have a myriad of things I could ask people to do, but we actually need to prioritize that and go, well, what is it that's going to be the most deeply meaningful thing?
Mm.
Because people, if you have one chance of getting them to do something that because
Yeah.
they want to help, or they're asking, what is that going to be that's going to be the most impactful?
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, for my project, I would love to find some people that might represent companies that want to sponsor the book, because one of my goals is I would love to be able to give the book away for free.
Right.
Like, it's not so much about hawking books, one decision at a time, one
Right.
individual at a time. I mean, if a company would recognize that it can help their employees, their clients, their whole ecosystem
Yeah.
build a, live work balance, be on a mission, live towards something more meaningful, have a better, more positive vibe, then that would be amazing for me, because I think that it's bringing it to communities,
Mhm.
that would be really wonderful for me to see, and be able to get it to people that may not otherwise be able to get it. I mean, not
Yeah.
that books are expensive, but they may not think to invest in it, but they're given it, and other people are doing it, and everybody's
Right.
kind of doing it together, whether it's a company or a book club or something. People love community. We all, because we have that, one of our driving needs is intimacy and connection
Sure.
to others. So if I would love to see my book be something people can connect over.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be great. What do you want to say in closing? We're gonna wrap this up, because that was a great, like, that's a call to
that's
action. It was
it.
great.
That is
What?
a call to
Yeah.
action.
What else do
Is
you want to say?
to first, obviously, if this is resonating, to go on glowliving.etsy.com and buy the book at the discount, the 25% off with the Thrive 25. You don't have to buy anything for me to love you. So go to the website and take the free quiz, glowliving.com. Take the free quiz and find out what this hidden force is that's driving your decision making. And engage. Just if you see a video or whatever, like it, comment, how's it landing on you? Just give the feedback, would be awesome. And that's really, what I would like to leave people with. And a sincere thank you for listening this far into our show.
Yeah. And there's people still listening. Hey, everybody. Thank you
Wow.
all for watching. I think I'm going to be
So
on the road
cool.
tomorrow, but I'm going to try to post a really cool show, really, really, really cool show from last night. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Pete. This
Yeah.
has been
And
so fun.
I know we
In
always
my
have
own
a good
backyard.
time in your own backyard. All right. We're going to turn this thing off. We'll see you all later.